So the tea over there is chaga, lion's mane, reishi, turkey tail, and ginger. If anyone wants a little mushroom tea. Yeah, and it's a cold tea. So
Oh, I will get some of that then. Yeah. So I wasn't sure I was down for hot tea right now.
Yeah, no, it's
like 85.
Oh, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I tend to
Hey, Assemblymember Paulin, how are you today?
Sorry.
All right, so happy you're here. So we'll get rolling in just a minute, I guess. Let's see. Do you guys? We lead by consensus. We're all walking each other home. Okay. So thank you all for coming to September's New Yorkers for Mental Health Alternatives. I see a few faces that we haven't seen in a while. Thanks for coming back. And Brian, thanks for coming in. Yeah. And there's a few new folks tuning in virtually that haven't come in before, so excellent. Well, if you've shown up by accident and you're not sure exactly where you are, New Yorkers for Mental Health Alternatives is an advocacy group who is working towards creating legal access for psilocybin-containing mushrooms. And we are really excited to host Assemblywoman Amy Paulin tonight, and she is the sponsor for A10375, the regulated something psilocybin act. Is that correct? Should have written that one down. So usually we do a bunch of announcements and I'll talk about some old business. We do have some exciting things coming up. So I definitely want to have time afterwards, but because we don't want to take up much of your time, Assemblywoman, I would love to give you the floor first. And you got the questions, but feel free to just talk however whatever you want to go over, and then we're going to open the floor up to some question and answers, and if there's anything else that you would love to discuss with us, then feel free. So why don't you do a mic check, and I'll check the volumes on the computer. And
can everyone hear me?
Yeah. All right, we're all good here.
Okay, good. So I'll start with your questions, and then we can see where that goes. I'm happy to answer additional questions, knowing with questions like these, somebody wrote them, and if not everyone on the Zoom might they might have different ones. So we'll start here. And for those of you who don't know me, I am an assembly member that represents Westchester, part of Westchester County. I've been doing this for 24 years. It's hard to believe. And currently I'm the health chair, and this is my, I guess for 2 years, roughly, right? Not quite, but Dick Gottfried, who was my predecessor in this job, retired, and I was fortunate enough to get the chairmanship. So why don't I start with almost your last question, or one of your middle questions, and that is, why am I even sympathetic to this? And I think I know about this not from you, but from my son, who gets cluster headaches. He's gotten them since college, and he has told me that the very best headache doctors that he's gone to have on the side said, this might be, I can't prescribe, I can't tell you to do it, but this is something that might help you. And being very aware of the debilitating way the cluster headaches impact him and the very, very strong medication he needs to take over a prolonged period of time, I became very in tune, or was very, I'm interested in helping, right? And it sounded to me that this was very similar to medical marijuana, clearly for different purposes and for a different population. But that's what it reminded me of. So, so going back to your first question, am I aware, of the, the FDA's rejection or their unwillingness or whatever it is, their decision to not classify these drugs as potential for medical use at this point. Yes, I'm very aware. And again, to me, that's very similar to medical marijuana. We saw the same path. And so I think these are actually, in a way, more sympathetic to, than medical marijuana, which, although I guess these two were used many years ago as, for, when I was in college, as a way to just get high, right? So in that way, they're similar, but it doesn't mean that there's no reason to one, to allow that altogether, and two, certainly for medical uses. So I'm just looking down your questions. So, it's not exactly the answer to your second question, or I'm not going to read it. It's a little long, but the idea behind the bill that we have, in my mind, being a legislator that's been around a long time, I like to look for patterns for, how you can get something done. And because this was done already for something that in a lot of people's minds is similar, in that it was used for illegal purposes, to get high, and it's now viewed as something by many people in the medical community as something that could help people alleviate their medical condition and their pain. And I thought always better with the, especially in my house, and it's probably true in the Senate as well, to go with something that is similar to what they know. And that means going at the first step to make it legal for medical purposes. So that's the approach that I think is the most likely approach. Having said that, I have two colleagues, Pat Burke and Linda Rosenthal, who have been involved with this issue for a long time. And Pat's veterans bill and Linda's decriminalization bill, is in a way a whole package. So, we can, I know there's people on this Zoom that think Linda's bill is the right answer. I just don't know how we're gonna, we need a path. And that's why I wanted to have a lot of things out there to choose among, almost like a smorgasbord, so that we have a path, because you never know what's going to happen in the real world, in the outside world, to influence the legislature. So having multiple approaches out there allows us to go forward in case something happens out there that could lead to which one of the bills, and all of them would be an improvement over what we have right now. So the fourth question. So the process to passing a bill, there's no one process. There's no one thing. The opposition, I wanted to do a hearing. Several of you know that, just on the topic. But the pushback I got was, and this was last year, we can try again, but I don't think the problem is solved out there, but it's getting better, is that the rollout for cannabis was so terrible that the criticism would be enormous if we tried to advance this in any way, which a hearing would look like we were doing. So I wasn't allowed to go forward because of the pushback, because of the way cannabis has been rolled out. So it's a little better. We don't hear about it quite as much. Maybe this session we can do a hearing. I think that is the next step to give it legitimacy. But it doesn't mean that if we don't have the hearing, I'm not going to try to get some of these bills on an agenda. I just don't know whether I'm going to be told not happening this year, and being told means, essentially leadership. So we'll see. I haven't made that attempt yet. Wait till January. Even things with cannabis hopefully will be even calmer by then. So, so there's, opportunities. I just don't know which way we're going to go forward. So I think I answered 5. And how do we prevent big money investors from moving in and keep? At this point, I'm so not up to that. My feeling is let's try to advance the issue, and then we can worry about protecting folks. Certainly we did that a lot with cannabis, but that's one of the criticisms, as to why New York has such a bad rollout. So, we want to be a little careful that I don't even know if we're going to see it in the same vein, right? Medical marijuana was certainly produced differently than legal cannabis now, and that's really what the criticism is about. There's much less criticism about medical marijuana, but reminding folks about that and pushing forward, I think we have an avenue there. But again, I don't know, because we just introduced this bill at the end of session. So we didn't have the opportunity to see what the pushback might be yet. So with that, I think I'm going to stop and see if anybody has any questions or anything you'd like me to comment on that I haven't.
Well, thank you so much. Does anyone online have anything that they want clarified or?
Well, I'll say that, first of all, thank you so much, Assembly Member, for working with us and thinking through the possible, and also about acknowledging that we need a pathway towards ultimately what people want, which is for no one to be criminalized for trying to heal themselves, no matter what that looks like. So I appreciated that. I was wondering if you could set some expectations for this group about what you think what we might expect from the coming legislative session, and what we can do to help you make something happen, no matter what that it is.
So I don't know that the legislators feel this group yet. So one of the things that you might consider doing is a lobby day, where Corinne, you're so familiar with, getting people up there and mobilizing them. And that's what I would suggest, so that it's not an issue people are aware of. The main, legislators, that you all have your own legislators. I don't know where you're all from, but I would shoot them an email about needing to do something, and putting a face on something like that, because a lot of legislators are going to think this is a little wacky, as all ideas, that haven't been around, that they're unfamiliar with, are viewed, especially legislators. I'm going to be pretty general here, but city legislators may be more aware, just because they're just more, there's more diversity in the city, and there's more things that come up that they may be more familiar. I'm not even sure, but I know that when I have bills that are a little wacky, they're the ones that I can start to rely on first. So if you're outside the city of New York, I would say, or outside Manhattan, and I'm going to put Queens, and maybe parts of Brooklyn in there. But if you're from Staten Island, for example, you're like upstate. You know, that's not, that's not the more liberal side of the New Yorkers that I'm thinking about. So I would say contact your legislators, even, city, upstate, whatever, and legitimize it. Meet them. Let them have a face that is someone who isn't crazy in front of them. And so you start to develop a relationship with a legislator. They're going to want to help you. They're going to want to know what bills to go on because you're their constituent. So I would say first, for everybody here, if you haven't spoken personally to your assembly member, first step. You're a senator, second step, because my house, and then to organize together to come up and meet others and to grow your group. Maybe to think about, do you know someone in my district? Do you know someone, who do you know in somebody's district that you haven't met with as a group, and that might be interested in being helpful, or educating them. There's more than you guys, right? Some of you represent groups, some of you represent organizations. I would see who you can gather and give them the job of meeting with their legislator. Just call them up. Legislators, especially now, before we go back in January, they're in their district offices. It's easy. And just say, I want you to know something about me. I hold a job, I do this, I'm not crazy, and I need this for my health.
Well, I just want to give a huge shout out to your staff and specifically Shelby, who helped us set up space. We're in the process of reserving space again for a big lobby day in 2025. And we do have an email that folks can send their lawmakers. And if folks on the phone or online haven't yet seen it, so that you can take it and personalize it and send it to your lawmakers, please ask us and we'll get it to you. But thanks for that advice.
I would go a step further. Try to make a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a friend to go with you, grab somebody who's not in the district. But if you have someone from the district, your legislator is not going to turn you away.
Yeah, that's what and as Corinne said, we spent several a whole week and then several other days at the Capitol and talking to other lawmakers. A lot of them were kind of caught off guard, but once like Joe McKay, who has an experience with cluster headaches, relates his story, and we had other people relating their own personal stories. That definitely is the way to show to people how necessary it is. And I mean, we met with, I think and you pointed it out, the only, and I won't even say negative comment that we got was, I haven't heard from my constituents on this issue. So, and that's something that I've been saying for the last 2 years, is just talk to your lawmakers. So it does work, absolutely. Do you have any
Allison.
on
Allison had a
Hi, Amy. This is Allison Hoots. I just wanted to also point out there's been some really amazing publicity around the bill, which does specifically focus on the fact that you are chair of the health committee and focused on people's health. And the fact that this is a bill that centers public health beyond just medical issues, as well as the educational components that increase health and create the access in the process of harm reduction. So it's not just a sort of like free-for-all situation, but rather a highly supported process with screening and, almost like a driver's test educational video, which is quite unique from any other state. And this bill was highlighted in the RAND report this year as one of their favorite drug reform bills in the country, and was also noted by Vox News as like one of the most, I think the thing they said was, it's the most reasonable approach to balancing expanding access and an emphasis on safety. And I think that your role on the health committee really creates the kind of credibility and focus that this bill deserves. And I'm really grateful for you supporting it in the way that you have.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I would say that if we're blessed by Fox News, how could we go wrong, right?
Not Fox, Vox with a
Fox,
V.
V.
Oh,
Um,
Fox. Oh, I was wondering. Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah, but actually Fox News
Yeah.
is very into microdosing psilocybin if you see some of their
Yeah, no,
videos lately. But it was the RAND report that was really exciting
I see,
based
I
on,
see,
the amount
I
of
see.
research that they do.
Yeah,
And
the other thing which is harder, but we did get there with medical marijuana is the health practitioners, any of them. You know, I know that, you know, offline, the doctors who treat this are very positive. It would be nice to have a few of them online, even if you have to get a retired one, you know, doesn't worry about his license anymore. But it would be good to have some physicians or nurses or someone who has that kind of legitimacy speak out.
Yeah, we have folks like that queued up for sure. We actually have a panel and a screening scheduled in Buffalo that will have a discussion, and we're inviting all of the Buffalo city lawmakers and the lawmakers from there. And there's actually a group out in Rochester called, or Pammy, do you remember what the name of that? The Psychedelic Nurses something?
I believe it was open. If you're gonna ask me what the acronym means, I completely forgot, but it's opennurses.org.
Yeah, and it's basically all nurses that specifically work with people on using psychedelic substances as part of their healing. And here in Troy, we have many folks who have been in the hospice system, doctors and nurses, and even a chaplain who have been very critical in participating in advocacy. And we have a pharmacist in the room right now that we're is also supporting us. So
if you guys need, so my name is Dr. Maurice Henson. I'm a primary care physician. I just hopped on, I think, at the perfect moment. But if you ever need, you know, a medical provider to speak on behalf on the therapeutic benefits of psychedelics, sign me up. You know, I'm looking for the opportunity to really get the research out there. I think if we approach this from an academic point of view, then there's no way that, you know, this can be denied. The areas in the world that have allowed psychedelic use, I mean, the data is unequivocal. I mean, it benefits people in so many different ways, even outside the mental health spectrum, which is one of the areas that I'm particularly invested in. And from a personal standpoint, you know, I've used shrooms quite often. I did a trip to Peru and did ayahuasca when I was dealing with some emotional trauma. So, you know, I can speak from a personal point of view as well as a professional. And so anytime you guys need someone to speak from an academic standpoint, let me know. I'll put my information in the chat.
yeah, please.
Maurice, where are you from? What section?
I'm in New York. I'm in New York City. I'm from Philly, but I practice at Queens Jamaica Hospital in Queens, New York. You know, I'm heavy into the medical cannabis and psychedelic space here in the city. And so I'm looking for more opportunity to really speak out on its behalf. I'm working with a few people like Gaetano, who's on the call as well, to really try to bring legislation to the forefront for various research purposes, especially with respect to opiate addiction and ibogaine, ketamine infusions, things like that. I mean, we're very, very much involved in the political landscape with these, you know, impressive therapeutics.
So Maurice, we have that action scheduled in Buffalo in October, and we're working on getting one in either Manhattan or Brooklyn at the end of November or early December. And so we'll do the same thing there's a group called Reconsider who has created short documentary films where they interviewed veterans, nurses, first responders, and so we did one in Albany where, you know, like Pat Burke came, Jake Ashby, and we had a full room of people who were, you know, learning about this for the first time. And we hope to do that again in New York. And I think we have a couple locations narrowed down. We just have to work out the date. And so I would love it if you are able to participate in that. So definitely get in touch so that I can stay in touch with you.
The only other thing I would think about, you know, I think it's harder for this than it was for medical marijuana, but you know, there were a number of people who went to jail because of their use of marijuana, which is now perceived as a horrible thing, right? I don't know what the penalties are in the law for this, you know.
It's a felony. It's a schedule. It's a felony offense. Yeah, and it comes with.
But I don't know, and if there's any data on how many and who they are, and you know how many people of color and Latinos, and you know disproportionate to white folks. That's helpful information. Very
So
helpful.
we actually did a program with some law enforcement folks up in the Capital Region. Was it 2 years ago, Avery? And we asked about the statistics, and I don't think it'll surprise many of you. There aren't that many arrests at all for psilocybin, and there's definitely not a disproportionate impact. I mean, you're just not seeing people arrested. I mean, there are exceptions, and I think.
Were they at one point? You know, in other words, you
No,
know,
not really. No, I mean,
really.
I mean, there have been crackdowns at festivals and stuff, but people just in general don't. I mean, we have a few people on the line right now that are being prosecuted. So I don't want to say it never happens, but it's pretty rare. And that's what the law enforcement folks told us. When we started talking about disparate impact, though, what occurred to us is that it's not that people are being arrested and prosecuted, it's that if you are someone who looks like me, you can obtain psilocybin without any trouble at all. Folks who have negative experiences with the criminal justice system, folks that have lived their life within the bounds of the law, they don't want to go underground. And so the disparate impact is really about access. Those of us who need and want it and look a certain way have access. Others may not be as comfortable going to the underground market, and so therefore they can't get access. So that's the real disparate impact that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I see.
And Assembly Member Pat Burke has a study in South Buffalo right now in a strategically undervalued community that has an extremely high rate of suicide, even amongst like veterans and first responders. And that is exactly one of the things, you know, why are the people in this area choosing to take their lives in that way? You know, and so there is a lot of action in trying to figure out how to help people who in demographics that have been strategically undervalued in the past. And you know, we've had one of our board members, he you know, said that he just doesn't feel safe because like he lives in a neighborhood where the police scream by with their sirens on, and if he wants to be home in a safe environment taking one of these substances that promote neuroplasticity, if you're constantly getting that paranoia jarring sensation of the police going by, you're going to have a difficult experience. So it's there's that facet too.
Understood. All right, well, I'll let you guys finish your meeting or have your meeting. I really appreciate the opportunity to come into this and get to know you better. And you know, we'll see how far we can get this done. You never know. That's I always start every session positive. I don't always end there, but I start.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Paulin, I just wanted to, on behalf of every other cluster headache.
Do you mind if I ask one quick question?
United States, I say thank you for taking this bill up.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Well,
Is there another question that maybe Shelby can pass on to the assembly member and get answered? I feel like somebody was trying to break in and ask a question.
There are a few in the chat.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Yeah, I'm just curious, being someone who's suffered from opioid, have utilized psychedelics to as a big part of my recovery. I was just curious if she had any
Alex,
thoughts on
Alex, you're really breaking up. We
the
can't.
use of psychedelics.
Alex, you're really breaking up. We can't hear you. Can you type it? And I think
Yeah.
there were some other people that had some questions. And Shelby, I think what we'll do is we'll just generate some more questions. Like Corinne said, there's several, or Claire said that there's several in the chat, and I'll send them off to you, and then Assemblywoman Paulin can answer them on her own time, and then I'll post them on the website, or I'll put them in the newsletter, or however we can respond in that way.
Sounds like a perfect plan. Great.
Awesome. Well, I have several other things to go over. So Shelby, if you want to stay on and listen in, you absolutely can. Otherwise, if not, thank you so much for helping us coordinate Assemblywoman's visit, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, awesome. So I'm super excited. I mean, there were a couple other things that I wanted to ask too, that wasn't able to go over, but this is just the start, and the bill that is like Allison, who I think is gone already, but like she said, we're actually, oh, there you are. It's getting a lot of discussion out around the whole country. So people are talking about it in Vermont, in Maine, in New Hampshire, in Maryland, in New Mexico, and then in Arizona, right? Kevin, is that the New Mexico and the Arizona folks were kind of like working together? And then
Correct. New Mexico.
Yeah, and
New Mexico.
And in California. So, I mean, this was something that one of the articles called it a secret third thing, and it's quickly not becoming a secret anymore. And that's part of what we really need to do, is really just keep talking about it. And yeah, I'm very excited. I already, so I'm just going to go through a couple things, and then there's some. Yes, you have a question?
It's kind of a question. I just adding on to what you're saying about how this is getting recognized more. An example of that is it's really amazing. All the flaming, very vocal about psychedelics, things like that. I think it's part of my journey, going through this. They're playing MSG tomorrow, so it's like they're out in front of the whole world, kind of saying like this is a good thing, and that's kind of interesting.
Well, and yeah, I don't know if anyone, if the online folks could hear, but we had a comment about the Flaming Lips being very outspoken about their psychedelic use, and there's a lot of other folks that are, and the corporate world, especially the computer realm. I mean, they've been microdosing in Silicon Valley for decades. And I read an article recently about, and I can't remember who it was, but they were flown to Australia and gave a presentation to bankers about psilocybin use with staff, and obviously in the corporate world it's all about productivity, but about people, encouraging people to be more open and problem solving, and focused and getting things done. So it's really starting to cross genres of like who is taking these substances and really running with them. And that's it's really exciting to hear. And I do think that we're on, the blue wave has other connotations, but like psilocybin containing mushrooms, often bruising blue. I have that image in my head so much of like this blue wave just like sweeping over everyone, and really starting to bring people together. So that's my hope. Does anyone have any other comments before I start running through a couple things yet? Okay, so I mentioned the 2 actions. So we have the one October 22nd. So if anyone is out in Western New York way, the ticketing isn't quite worked out yet, but it's going to be at the Irish Theater. What is it? Irish Theater Company's theater, which Pat Burke has been coordinating this event with Reconsider, and I don't see anyone from Reconsider on right now, but if you haven't heard of them, you can just go to Reconsider, and I think it's .org, and they have some videos that you can view. Absolutely amazing. So I invited the City of Troy council members to tonight, and I sent them all so that in 2022, or actually it was January of 23, we met at the City of Troy council meeting, and we presented a decriminalization referendum. And at that time, they were like, well, it's an election year, and we want to wait to see what the state's doing. But there's an all new city council now. And so I sent them that decrim referendum again and told them, about what we've been doing. And so we're really excited to, start talking. And Aaron Ganuth, who is on the call now, he and I spoke today about approaching the Kingston's city council. And especially if we can get like a small municipality like Buffalo or New York City even to start thinking about it, that is going to be absolutely huge. Let's see. So the newsletter has gone out twice, and I realized that Squarespace, or at least our account that was created by the previous owners of NYMHA, has an email function. So it was super easy to just be like, oh, create an email campaign. And then did everybody got the email, right? That signed up for the newsletter? Cool. That worked. And then we started creating a working group coalition called New Yorkers for Wellness Options. And we've had a few marketing meetings, and we came up with a really great logo for it using like the license plate that has the Niagara Falls in New York City. And we're going to have some mushrooms coming out of it and just have NIWO or whatever as the license plate number. So we've already met with the Urban Indigenous Collective, with the Psychedelic Sisterhood, with Brooklyn Psychedelic Society, with the Psychedelic Society of Western New York, Darkhai Rufua, and the Hudson Valley Psychedelic Society. So we're starting to bring people together across the state with these letters of support from organizations. And we've reached out to other mushroom farmers, because that's one of the things that we really haven't been hearing from, is other people working mushroom adjacent, with culinary mushrooms or other medicinal mushrooms, making tinctures and whatnot. And we're doing the same thing, getting these like letters of support so that the mushroom farmers who already have all the technology and the know-how don't get cut out of the possibility of cultivating these. And I met with my brother, that's who said it, but he pointed out the Farm Brewery Act that gets New York brewers need to take so much New York product to go into their beers. And we should look at the New York Farm Brewery Act as we're kind of crafting some psilocybin language to say like, oh, and New York psilocybin should be grown in New York by New York farmers. And Amy is on the Rensselaer County Farm Bureau board, and we had a policy meeting at the beginning of September or August, and we proposed working in language about psilocybin containing mushrooms to the Farm Bureau. They accepted it, approved it, and next month we're meeting with all of the state farm bureaus from every county, and we're going to talk about incorporating this policy suggestion for psilocybin containing mushrooms at the Farm Bureau level for the state, and then they're going to take it to the country. So it'll be a part of the federal handbook for the Farm Bureau. Really super exciting. And another thing that's getting the word outside of the psychedelic bubble is as my role as a psilocybin correspondent for the Committee on Medicinal Mushrooms for the North American Mycological Association. I've now finished a second article on cluster busters and psilocybin use. And so I interviewed someone in Mexico, someone in Canada, and someone in Michigan for the United States, and kind of wove their tales together and sent it to my committee members. And Dr. Michael Bug, who is Paul Stamets' mycology teacher in Washington, he had never heard of the cluster busters. It got him really excited. And he wanted me to make some slides specifically on the cluster busters so that he can use them in his presentations in Washington when he talks to other universities and things. So Joe, I started your slide, and Kevin, I think I just need some facts, but they're looking really good so far. Obviously, I'm gonna run them by you guys before we send them off or anything, but all of these little jags outside of the psychedelic bubble are really going to be what unleashes that blue wave out of the balloon that is the psychedelic world. Let's see, Winslow County, blah, 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 talked about that. Okay, Claire, are you still here? I was able to put your talking points, I don't think she must be gone, but the talking points for family members are now on the website as a resource. So we created all these, if you are uncomfortable talking to your family members, some suggestions about how to start a conversation with people about psilocybin or psychedelic use. And so those are now on the website. I also created a media page that has all of our meetings and some of the other actions that we've done. That's all on the website, so you can feel free to share that. And then we have a couple events coming up. So David Stein has taken the lead on organizing a fundraiser for NYMHA so that we can finish filing for the 501c3, because we want an educational component, which is tax deductible donations, and then we'll be able to balance both realms of nonprofitness. And so Saturday, November 9th, either from 4 to 9 or 5 to 10, we're going to have a silent auction. We're going to have food. There will be a cash bar. There's going to be a band. There's going to be a DJ. I actually did get a hold of a comedian, Adam Strauss. Hope he might come up. So, there'll be an evening of entertainment. Joe McKay said that he's available. So I'm going to put together an educational panel. I'm thinking about inviting some of the local lawmakers like John McDonald, who's been so supportive, and see if we can create a little educational component as well.
Where is it?
It's going to be at Indian Ladder Farms. And what we do need a couple people to help coordinate items for the silent auction. So if anyone is interested in helping with a couple facets of the fundraiser, right now it's just been David and I kind of throwing some ideas back and forth. And when I mentioned it to Amy, I don't know if you had food specific ideas, but I deal with chefs all day, all around the capital region. And Amy was like, what if we make it a chili competition, or everyone provides a soup, and then so we could have maybe even invite some other chefs so that they could be there, and we could spread the food out a little bit too. And then so that other people that I've talked to about this advocacy have always said, oh, let me know what we could do. So even if it is just here, give us a giant pot of soup or whatever, maybe that could work. So we're making a big pot of stone soup, everybody.
Are you guys going to be accepting, my first thought was are you accepting donations for things to auction off?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, donations, time, things like that. Like Collar City Mushrooms will probably provide a foraging walk or something like that. So
Avery?
Yeah.
Avery, what day was that event that you just mentioned?
Saturday, November 9th.
Okay, I just want to make sure I have it. Thank you.
Yep. And that's the new business. Oh, and the only other thing that I wanted to mention is that Collar City Mushrooms has been invited to participate in Farm Aid this year. And as we're going to be teaching in their skills tent how to grow mushrooms at home. And their theme is connecting, bridging the gap between the urban and the rural. And because we're an urban farm, they're really excited to hear about us. And, I mentioned, and I just had a meeting with their advocacy team at 3:00 today. And I mentioned that through this advocacy, I basically have talked to dozens of lawmakers already. And they were like, well, can you invite them and do this and blah, blah, blah. And they want me to be a part of their press event, which will have some national coverage. So I'm hoping I have the freedom to talk about whatever that I want to talk about. So if I can slip in some psilocybin advocacy in that would be pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty much all that I had. Our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, October 8th. And Pammy, did you connect with that woman that you thought would be a good guest? Pammy.
Sorry, hi.
That's okay.
I spoke with Eugenia Bone, very briefly, her publicist. She has a book coming out, Have a Good Trip, about mushrooms, and like just anecdotal things. But I reached out to her publicist, because he reached out to me to kind of promote the book a little bit. So I was like, maybe that'll be a great kind of like synergistic thing where she comes and speaks about her book and talks about some of those experiences that she's had. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Eugenia Bone, but she is a mushroom chef, and I think she's been slowly but surely kind of moving into the psychedelic space. Yeah, so hopefully next month she'll be able to speak with us.
Cool. And if we don't line Eugenia up for October, I mean, I was thinking we just had Assemblymember Paulin. I think we reach out to Assemblymember Rosenthal's team, which I noticed no one on her team is on right now, and then Assemblymember Pat Burke. So if we could, get the lawmakers who have sponsored all of the bills, kind of to talk about why they're engaged in this. And I hope build some bridges between them and, really help create more of a coalition of lawmakers too, because I don't think that really exists so much. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But yeah, so keep me posted about that, Pammy, because I would love to, start kind of talking about that if she's going to be our next speaker. And somebody said, I'm so bad at looking at these chat things. So somebody said something about an email. Where's the chat? Yes, there will be an email sent out about the November 9th event at Indian Ladder Farms. I'm gonna craft that individually, and it won't be part of the newsletter. It'll be its own thing. So folks and stuff, cool. Silent auction. Thank you, Aaron. All right, I'll have to look at all these other messages later because I don't want to keep everybody online. But yeah, so thank you all so much for tuning in, and it's only up from here. So let's go.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Avery.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good
night. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Avery. Talk tomorrow.
Thanks, Avery.
All right.
I stop this.